Chapter 11 of The Big Time by Fritz Leiber. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Karen Savage. Chapter 11. The barrage roars and lifts. Then, clumsily bowed with bombs and guns and shovels and battle gear, men jostle and climb to meet the bristling fire. Lines of gray, muttering faces masked with fear, they leave their trenches going over the top, while time ticks blank and busy on their wrists. Sassoon. The Western Front, 1917. Please don't, Lily. I shall, my love. Sweetling, wake up. Hast the shakes? I opened my eyes a little and lied to Siddy with a smile and locked my hands together tight and watched Bruce and Lily quarrel nobly near the control divan and wished I had a great love to blur my misery and provide me with a passable substitute for change winds. Lily won the argument, judging from the way she threw her head back and stepped away from Bruce's arms while giving him a proud, tender smile. He walked off a few steps, praise be he didn't shrug his shoulders at us like an old husband, though his nerves were showing, and he didn't seem to be standing introversion well at all, as who of us were. Lily rested a hand on the head of the control divan and pressed her lips together and looked around at us, mostly with her eyes. She'd wound a gray silk bandeau around her bangs. Her short gray silk dress without a waistline made her look not so much like a flapper, though she looked like that all right, as like a little girl, except the neckline was scooped low enough to show she wasn't. Her gaze hesitated and then stopped at me, and I got a sunk feeling of what was coming, because women are always picking on me for an audience. Besides, Sid and I were the centrist party of two in our fresh-out-of-the-shell place politics. She took a deep breath and stuck out her chin and said in a voice that was even a little higher and Britisher than she usually uses, "We girls have often cried, 'Shut the door,' but now the door is jolly well shut for keeps." I knew I'd guessed right, and I felt crawly with embarrassment, because I know about this love business of thinking you're the other person and trying to live their life and grab their glory, though you don't know that, and carry their message for them, and how it can foul things up. Still, I couldn't help admitting what she said wasn't too bad a start. Unpleasantly apt to be true, at any rate. "My fiancé believes we may yet be able to open the door. I do not. He thinks it is a bit premature to discuss the peculiar pickle in which we all find ourselves. I do not." There was a rasp of laughter from the bar. The militarists were reacting. Eric stepped out, looking very happy. "So, now we have to listen to women making speeches," he called. "What is this place, anyhow? Sidney Lessingham's Saturday evening sewing circle?" Beau and Sevensee, who'd stopped their pacing halfway between the bar and the control divan, turned toward Eric, and Sevensee looked a little burlier, a little more like half a horse than satyrs and mythology book illustrations. He stamped medium hard, I'd say, and said, "Go fly a kite." I'd found out he'd learned English from a demon who'd been a longshoreman with syndicalist anarchist sympathies. Eric shut up for a moment and stood there grinning, his hands on his hips. Lily nodded to the satyr and cleared her throat, looking scared. But she didn't speak. I could see she was thinking and feeling something, and her face got ugly and haggard, as if she were in a change wind that hadn't reached me yet, and her mouth went into a snarl to fight tears, but some spurted out. And when she did speak, her voice was an octave lower, and it wasn't just London talking, but New York, too. "I don't know how resurrection felt to you people, because I'm new, and I loathe asking questions. But to me it was pure torture, and I wished only I'd had the courage to tell Suzaku I wished to remain a zombie, if you don't mind. I'd rather the nightmares. But I accepted resurrection because I've been taught to be polite, and because there is the demon in me I don't understand that always wishes to live, and I found that I still felt like a zombie, although I could flit about, and that I still had the nightmares, except they'd grown a deal vivider. I was a young girl again, 17, and I suppose every woman wishes to be 17, but I wasn't 17 inside my head. I was a woman who had died of Bright's disease in New York in 1929, and also, because a big change blew my lifetime into a new drift, a woman who had died of the same disease in Nazi-occupied London in 1955, but rather more slowly, because, as you can fancy, the liquor was in far shorter supply. I had to live with both those sets of memories, and the change world didn't blot them out any more than I'm told it does those of any demon, and it didn't even push them into the background, as I'd hoped it would. When some change fellow would say to me, "Hallo, beautiful, how about a smile?" or "That's a posh frock, kiddo," I'd be back at Bellevue, looking down at my swollen figure and the light getting like spokes of ice, or in that dreadful gin-steeped Stepney bedroom with Phyllis coughing herself to death beside me, or at best, for a moment, a little girl in Glamorgan looking at the Roman road and wondering about the wonderful life that lay ahead. I looked at Eric, remembering he had a long, nasty future back in the cosmos himself, and at any rate, he wasn't smiling, and I thought maybe he's getting a little humility, knowing someone else has 2 of those futures, but I doubted it. Because you see, Lily kept forcing it out, all my 3 lives I'd been a girl who fell in love with a great young poet she'd never met, the voice of the new youth and all youth, and she'd told her first big lie to get in the Red Cross and across to France to be nearer him, and it was all danger and dark magics and a knight in armor, and she pictured how she'd find him wounded, but not seriously, with a little bandage around his head, and smile lightly, never letting him guess what she felt, but only being her best self and watching to see if that made something happen to him. And then the Boche machine guns cut him down at Passchendaele, and there couldn't ever have been bandages big enough, and the girl stayed 17 inside, and messed about and tried to be wicked, though she wasn't very good at that, and to drink, and she had a bit more talent there, though drinking yourself to death is not nearly as easy as it sounds, even with a kidney weakness to help. But she turned the trick. Then a cock crows. She wakes with a tearing start from the grey dreams of death that fill her lifeline. It's cold daybreak. There's the smell of a French farm. She feels her ankles, and they're not at all like huge rubber boots filled with water. They're not swollen the least bit. They're young legs. There's a little window in the tops of a row of trees that may be poplars when there's more light, and what there is shows cots like her own, and heads under blankets, and hanging uniforms make large shadows, and a girl is snoring. There's a very distant rumble, and it moves the window a bit. Then she remembers they're Red Cross girls, many, many kilometers from Passchendaele, and that Bruce Marchant is going to die at dawn today. In a few more minutes he's going over the top, where there's a crop-headed machine-gunner in field grey, already looking down the sights and swinging the gun a bit. But she isn't going to die today. She's going to die in 1929 and 1955. And just as she's going mad, there's a creaking, and out of the shadows tiptoes a Jap with a woman's hairdo and the whitest face and the blackest eyebrows. He's wearing a rose robe and a black sash which belts to his side 2 samurai swords, but in his right hand he has a strange silver pistol, and he smiles at her as if they were brother and sister and lovers at the same time, and he says, "Voulez-vous vivre, mademoiselle?" And she stares, and he bobs his head and says, "Missy wish live, yes, no?" Sid's paw closed quietly around my shaking hands. It always gets me to hear about anyone's resurrection, and although mine was crazier, it also had the Krauts in it. I hoped she wouldn't go through the rest of the formula, and she didn't. 5 minutes later, he's gone down a stairs more like a ladder to wait below, and she's dressing in a rush. Her clothes resist a little, as if they were lightly gummed to the hook and the stained wall, and she hates to touch them. It's getting lighter, and her cot looks as if someone was still sleeping there, although it's empty, and she couldn't bring herself to put her hand on the place if her new life depended on it. She climbs down, and her long skirt doesn't bother her because she knows how to swing it. Suzaku conducts her past a sentry who doesn't see them, and a puffy-faced farmer in a smock, coughing and spitting the night out of his throat. They cross the farmyard, and it's filled with rose light, and she sees the sun is up, and she knows that Bruce Marchant has just bled to death. There's an empty open touring car chugging loudly, waiting for someone. It has huge muddy wheels with wooden spokes and a brass radiator that says Simplex, but Suzaku leads her past it to a dunghill and bows apologetically, and she steps through a door. I heard Eric say to the others at the bar, "How touching. Now shall I tell everyone about my operation?" But he didn't get much of a laugh. That's how Lillian Foster came into the change world with its steel-engraved nightmares and its deadly pace and deadlier lassitudes. I was more alive than I ever had been before, but it was the kind of life a corpse might get from unending electrical shocks, and I couldn't summon any purpose or hope, and Bruce Marchant seemed farther away than ever. Then, not 6 hours ago, a soldier in a black uniform came through the door, and I thought, it can't be, but it does look like his photographs. And then I thought I heard someone say the name Bruce, and then he shouted as if to all the world that he was Bruce Marchant, and I knew there was a resurrection beyond resurrection, a true resurrection. Oh, Bruce. She looked at him, and he was crying and smiling, and all the young beauty flooded back into her face, and I thought, it has to be change winds, but it can't be. Face it without slobbering, Greta. There's something that works bigger miracles than change. And she went on. And then the change winds died when the snakes vaporized the maintainer, or the ghost girls introverted it, and all 3 of them vanished so swiftly and silently that even Bruce didn't notice. Those are the best explanations I can summon, and I fancy one of them is true. At all events, the change winds died, and my past, and even my futures, became something I could bear lightly, because I have someone to bear them with me, and because at last I have a true future stretching out ahead of me, an unknown future which I shall create by living. Oh, don't you see that all of us have it now, this big opportunity? Huzzah for Sydney suffragettes and the WCTU, Eric cheered. Bon, will you play us a medley of Hearts and Flowers and Onward Christian Soldiers? I am deeply moved, Lily. Where do the rest of us queue up for the great love affair of the century? End of chapter 11.